Welcome to the School District of Indian River County Title IX training. What is Title IX? It is a comprehensive federal law that prohibits discrimination based on sex in any federally funded education program or activity. There are relevant non-discrimination and Title IX policies on the School District of Indian River County webpage under School Board Docs. There are also website resources available on our Notices of Non-Discrimination webpage and our Title IX information webpage. Title IX is the policy that applies to sexual harassment that occurs within the district's education programs and activities, and that is committed by a member of the school district community or a third party. This does not apply to sexual harassment that occurs off school grounds in a private setting and outside the scope of the district's education programs or activities. Sexual harassment can include one of the following three descriptions. The first is quid pro quo. A school employee conditioning the provision of aid, benefits, or services on the individual's participation in unwelcome sexual conduct. It should be noted that this is the type of sexual harassment that can only be adult on adult. Hostile environment is an unwelcome conduct that a reasonable person would determine to be so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it denies a person equal access to the education program or activity. This can be adults or students, and it must have all three pieces. It must be severe, which can be nonverbal all the way through a sexual assault, pervasive, where the type and frequency and duration causes it to rise to that definition of pervasive, and objectively offensive to a reasonable person under the same circumstance. Sexual assault is the third kind and can also be adult or student and has many types, but it can involve rape, including penetration of any sexual organ, no matter how slight, without consent, fondling, which is touching for sexual gratification without consent, incest, sexual intercourse between two people who are related as prohibited by law, statutory rape, which is sexual intercourse with a person who is under the age of consent, dating violence, which is violence committed by a person who is or has been in a relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim, domestic violence, which is violence committed by a current or former spouse, a person who shares a child in common, or a person you are cohabitating with as a current or recently former intimate partner, and stalking, which is engaging in a course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear their safety or the safety of others around them or suffer substantial emotional distress. The key players in a Title IX investigation begin with the complainant, who is the alleged victim of the conduct that could rise to the level of sexual harassment, the respondent, which is the person reported to be the perpetrator of the conduct that could constitute sexual harassment, the Title IX coordinator. At the district level, if it's an adult respondent, you would reach out to the Director of Human Resources. District level, if it's a student respondent, it goes to the Director of Student Services. And at the school level, you reach out to the assigned assistant principal, which that list of school assistant principal Title IX coordinators is on our district website, Title IX page. The Title IX investigator is typically the AP assigned to be the school-based Title IX coordinator unless there is a possible bias. All Title IX coordinators should consider the complainant, the respondent, and the situation and determine if there is any possible bias that they might need to go to their principal and request a new Title IX investigator be assigned for this case. The Title IX decision maker is the principal if it's a student situation, and then the appeals decision maker, you would contact the Director of HR or Student Services, as that would be the appropriate cabinet member that is over that director. Title IX investigation could have conduct that involves any of the four following scenarios. It could be student on student, which you will contact the Director of Student Services. Student on employee, you contact the Director of Student Services, but we may work with Human Resources to ensure that the employee has all that they need and support during the investigation. Employee on student, you would contact the Director of Human Resources. However, Student Services may supply supportive measures to the student in this situation. And employee on employee, in which case you would contact the Director of Human Resources. All SDIRC employees are mandatory reporters. All concerns of sexual misconduct on a child require a call or website report to DCF immediately and include that information when you contact the Director of Student Services or Human Resources. And that doesn't matter whether it's student on student or adult on student. And of course, anytime you have concern of imminent danger for either one of the adults or students on your campus, you should report to law enforcement immediately as well. How to report Title IX complaints. There are many ways, but adults working in the district or in the community can find our formal complaint form on the SDIRC Title IX webpage. Parents and students may fill out a bullying reporting form, but note sexual behaviors, in which case a Title IX investigation should be considered. They may fill out a report in the school office, they may call or email the school, and they may tell a school district employee. Teachers may report using the webpage form, they may call or email their supervisor, they may speak to their supervisor, or they could include information in a referral about a student that could lead to a Title IX investigation. Any notification should be immediately addressed to determine if it rises to the level of a Title IX investigation. When and where can Title IX occur? There is no statute of limitations on Title IX, so any report of a previous sexual harassment on your campus must be investigated. Where basically is that it must be in our school district's purview or jurisdiction. In other words, do we have control over both the respondent and the context in which the sexual harassment occurs? So anytime it's occurring on the SDIRC campus or building, then we should have control over the context and the respondent. Any extracurricular activities or events that the district has control over, so field trips, even out of town field trips. It can include online situations. If it is bringing a pervasive harassment situation to your campus, if the adult is communicating online and is one of our employees, if it is being used through one of our focus communication apps, all of those situations should be considered, and if it's unclear, you should contact the appropriate director to clarify. To rise to the level of a Title IX investigation, we must meet one of the three definitions we just covered: quid pro quo, sexual harassment, sexual assault. We must determine that we have control over the respondent, and we must determine that we have control over the location or event. If there is a yes to all three of those things, then it becomes a Title IX investigation. If it doesn't rise to the level of Title IX, it may still be a referral for the respondent, or it could still be an investigation on the adult per the Code of Student Conduct or the employee agreements within the district. When in doubt, call your Director of Human Resources or Student Services to make the correct determination. If you are using a SEXR code of sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual battery, sexual offenses other, or harassment, call the Director of Student Services to determine if a Title IX investigation should be utilized in correlation with that SEXR code. The Title IX resources that are available to you are the Title IX Handbook. This will be found in the district's handbook directory. It will have the flow charts for what steps to take, the forms to use, the letters to send at both the start and the end of the investigation, and other supports you will need. The Title IX website, which is available to the public as well as the schools, has the overview and process for procedures for employees, the grievance process, the formal complaint form, and the request for appeal form, along with a list of the school-based Title IX coordinators and contact information for the Director of Human Resources and the Director of Student Services. In the Title IX Handbook, you will find 3 different flowcharts for investigation. There is a flowchart for students in grades K through 12. There is a student post-secondary flowchart. This would, for our school district, include any Treasure Coast Technical College investigations. And there is a flowchart for human resources. Again, for the human resources flowchart, you are going to contact human resources and determine if it rises to the level of Title IX or if it will be some other type of adult investigation. In the Title IX Handbook, you will find a checklist that will walk you through all of the steps, starting with, is there any bias or conflict of interest with your Title IX school-based coordinator, as well as keeping a track of what steps you've done and when in order to have that report. The first step, regardless of whether or not the concern rises to the level of Title IX is to provide supportive measures for the safety of the complainant. This may include restoring access to the education program or activity, providing support during grievance procedures, or if they choose to go through the informal resolution process. They must be non-disciplinary and individualized and may be given to the complainant immediately, and then you would also give them to the respondent if a formal complaint is filed. Example of these might be counseling, restrictions on no contact, leave of absence, extension of deadlines for grades, change in classwork, campus escorts, change in program or activities, training on how to investigate Title IX supports, increased security in certain areas on campus, etc. In that first step, you'll be having that initial meeting with the complainant and their parent or legal guardian, and the supportive measures are put in place. The second step is then to determine if the parent is going to sign for a formal complaint. Sometimes that parent chooses not to, and the Title IX coordinator has already read the complaint and determined that the complaint must be investigated. It is kind to be transparent in this situation, and if the parent is determining not to sign for formal complaint, that you let them know that it has risen to an egregious level that you are going to go ahead and investigate. Continue with the supportive measures and continue informing the parent, but they are not the official complainant. The third step would then be to determine that it meets one of the three requirements as previously discussed. It has to meet either quid pro quo sexual harassment or sexual assault. It has to be a respondent that the district has control over in any way, and it has to be a location or event that the district has any sort of jurisdiction over. If it is dismissed, both parties are notified. If it hasn't risen to that level, you should tell them why you're dismissing it, and they have 2 days to appeal. If it is moved to the formal investigation, that written notice of complaint is submitted to both parties as well within 2 days. You would then move on to the full investigation. Interviews are going to be scheduled because you must properly notice them. All parents or legal guardians are going to want to know if their student is being investigated or interviewed for the investigation. There is a notice to use in this situation in the manual. You will then conduct the interviews and collect the evidence. You will provide all the evidence to both parties. Statements with student witness names should be redacted, and parties will have 10 days to respond to the evidence. After those 10 days are up, the Title IX investigator is going to write a report that summarizes all of the evidences, share that with both parties and the decision maker. Both parties get 10 days to review the full report with the evidences and ask any further questions. At this point, the process moves on to the decision maker, which is the principal. They are going to review any further submitted questions and determine if those questions are relevant and should be responded to, or if they are going to be excluded. If you exclude them, you should provide an explanation to the person who submitted the question. The decision maker will then determine the outcome. Is it Title IX, yes or no, and notify all parties of the same. The principal may contact the student services director to review the situation or may move on their own accord. The written determination must include the following, and this form is in the manual for you to refer to: description of all the steps taken in this process, the statement of rationale for the result, and it should include the supporting facts, sanctions imposed on the respondent, remedies for the complainant to restore or preserve their access to the educational program or activity, and information on procedure for appeal. Every party has 3 days to submit an appeal once they have received that final written determination. If there is no appeal, the documents and all forms go in focus under each student, so put it in both the respondent and the complainant. This is only Director of Student Services team and school administration teams can see this upload field in student documentation, so it is private and reserved. If there is an appeal, reach out to the Director of Student Services for next steps, as the appeal would go up the chain in the district level. Written determination of appeal would be sent with a final outcome to all parties within 5 days, and then that would also be uploaded into the same spot. If you have any questions, contact the Director of Student Services and refer to your manual. Thank you and have a great day.